real history of the world is a history of competing conspiracies.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
We did not trade weapons or anything else for hostages.
There can be no whitewash at the White House.
Watergate, Iran-Contra, Lewinsky. The biggest American scandals in the last 30 years have one connection: the president. Conspiracy theories flourish around American presidents and their empire.
We have criminal politics. We have insanity.
With parapolitical manipulation.
Simple, explanations. Governments commit abuses and then governments lie about it.
To abolish all national sovereignty of all peoples in the world for all time.
Hand in hand with politics go the media, they conspiracy theorists. Manipulated by the government, in cahoots with the government.
The media is considered to be sort of an arm of government. I think the mainstream press in this country does a very good job of that.
In the main, Americans are deeply patriotic. In the 1960s and 70s, a series of political scandals shook the faith of American citizens in the institution of government.
Here in the States, the whole conspiracy theory industry definitely started with the assassination of President Kennedy roughly 40 years ago. I think up until that time, we had sort of been indoctrinated to believe that our government was always acting in our best interest.
The assassination was investigated by Chief Justice Earl Warren. He concluded that JFK had been killed by Lee Harvey Oswald, a lone assassin.
He was killed, murdered by this oligarchy. The Warren report is totally fictitious.
When people started to question the Warren Commission, you're questioning Earl Warren, you're questioning, therefore, the authority of the Supreme Court, the authority of the president who appointed him.
Outrageous conspiracy theories mushroomed.
JFK was murdered by the oligarchy of evil, the American Illuminati.
JFK revealed the secret of the flying saucers to Marilyn Monroe, and therefore he had to be murdered.
He's not really dead at all, that he's living on a Greek island.
Sort of the theory on top of the theory is that there was a massive cover-up.
Conspiracy theories reached a new level of intensity 6 years later, when Richard Nixon became president. The United States was at war with communist North Vietnam.
Well, the Vietnam War was another traumatic national event which caused a huge breakdown of the sort of fabric, the link that connected the people to the government. And then in the early 70s, the so-called Pentagon Papers were released, written by employees of our military, which basically proved that what was really going on in Vietnam was not, in fact, what we were being told, because we had been lied to by our government.
How could anybody live through that?
Anti-Vietnam War protests overshadowed President Nixon's first term in office. He took a tough stand. To win his second term in 1972, President Nixon had a fight on, but had his campaign team's involvement in a break-in months earlier been known, the result might have been very different. In June 1972, 5 men burgled the headquarters of President Nixon's Democratic rival at the Watergate office building.
Elements of Nixon's campaign broke into the Watergate Hotel to either plant information or to get information about the Democratic presidential campaign in 1972.
The burglars were caught. The Senate investigated. And just months into his second term, Nixon got involved in the cover-up. And he might have got away with it.
Certainly we've seen no hard evidence that the president had advanced knowledge of the bugging. We do know that the president was warned by some of his top staff aides as early as December.
Washington Post reporters Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein cracked the story.
Woodward and Bernstein were dismissed as conspiracy theorists by the White House and treated in that way by much of the press for a long time. And I think probably that's how it would have ended had it not been for Judge Sirica, who used his powers as a judge to force this thing open.
Judge John Sirica presided over the Watergate hearings. Nixon's role soon became apparent.
Now, no one ever implicated Nixon in actually ordering the break-in, but he got involved in getting the CIA to stop the FBI, or to try to stop the FBI from investigating Watergate. And he was caught on tape saying that.
When transcripts of White House tape recordings were released in 1974, they proved Nixon had been involved in a cover-up. Time was running short for the president. The House Judiciary Committee voted to throw him out of office, but Nixon beat them to it and resigned.
Au revoir. We'll see you again.
People realized that the most powerful, trusted people in this country could not necessarily be trusted. Watergate was really the last time that the media affected government in any kind of constructive way. You know, by helping getting the president out of there, they helped change the system a little bit.
Americans were outraged by Watergate and the president's role in it. But conspiracy theorists feel the real culprit was a secret network of all-powerful global intelligence agents, the Octopus.
Our little group that knows how to use assassinations, revolutions, rioting, different kinds of manipulation to further its own power interests, which are multinational and personal and have to do with the power of the group, the Octopus. And it's nothing to do with democracy, it's nothing to do with elections.
Ken Thomas believes that President Nixon crossed the Octopus by trying to co-opt the CIA's power for himself.
The closer you look at Watergate, the more you realize that Nixon is essentially at war with elements of the Octopus. Nixon was everything that history makes him out to be, a real seedy, manipulative, kind of conspiracy-oriented figure. But he was at war with something else that was the same thing, but only better at it.
The Octopus also spread its tentacles in many later political conspiracy theories. It certainly wasn't on President Jimmy Carter's side. Standing for a second term in 1980, this peanut farmer from Georgia was facing Republican Ronald Reagan. The stakes were high. Trouble was brewing in Iran. Its ruler, the Shah, was backed by America, but he was ousted by the followers of Ayatollah Khomeini in 1979. Anti-American sentiments ran high. In November, Iranian students stormed the U.S. embassy in Tehran and took over 50 hostages.
An incredibly embarrassing situation for the United States to have these hostages that they couldn't free and could do nothing for.
For months, President Carter tried everything to get the hostages released. As he failed on the diplomatic front, his popularity plummeted.
Since mid-November, we and the Iranian officials have been discussing with...
A military rescue mission to Iran in April 1980 failed. 8 American Marines were killed. Time was running short. Presidential elections were in November. President Carter's impotence to free the hostages